With only a few long days to spend before going home, a group of bomb extractors have to survive the harsh conditions of the war they are in. The only problem is that the new soldier seems to find war a thrilling experience. The movie opens in Baghdad, year 2004, during the height of the Iraq War. There is a commotion in the streets of the city due to a suspected explosive device inside a sack. A group of soldiers, Thompson, Sanborn, and Eldridge, send a machine to check the explosive device. Upon checking and confirming that there is indeed a bomb inside, the soldiers attach a wagon on the back of the machine so that they can extract the bomb. While sending the machine back, one of the wheels of the attached wagon breaks down. Thompson goes inside the dangerous explosion radius of the bomb to fix the wagon. The remaining soldiers then spot a man with a cell phone. Before the soldiers can reach the man has already detonated the bomb through the phone. Unfortunately, Thompson dies because of this. His friend, Sanborn, delivers his final things to him. Eventually, Sanborn meets with Sergeant James, the new leader of their team, Bravo Company, after Thompson's untimely death. At this point, there are only 38 days left in Bravo Company's rotation. The group is called to a place somewhere in Baghdad to meet with another group of soldiers requesting aid. After meeting with them, one of the soldiers informs James about the bomb's location, which is 20 meters away from them. After receiving the information, James tells Sanborn that he will suit up and go to the location. Sanborn suggests that they should use the machine first before going in, but James stubbornly wants to continue with his plan. James wears the protective suit despite Sanborn's protest. While walking to the bomb site, James suddenly uses a smoke grenade on the road. Sanborn immediately asks James via radio about the strange move. Sanborn then asks James about how near he is to the bomb site, but James tells Sanborn that he will inform him when he's there already. James continues his walk despite the danger of what he had done. While walking, a random fast car suddenly drives inside the blast zone. James pulls his pistol and points it towards the car. The soldiers are even more alerted because of this, but Sanborn tells them to stand down because they might go inside the blast zone. The stranger in the car does not respond when James tells him to go back. Slightly agitated, James shoots 4 times to intimidate the stranger, but the stranger does not budge. James then points the gun towards the stranger's head. Fortunately, the stranger backs off and gets subsequently restrained by other soldiers. James marches on. James eventually sees what appears to be a bomb slightly hidden on the ground. James then cuts the wires in a swift and efficient manner. However, James sees another wire connected to the bomb. After pulling the wires, multiple bombs emerge from the ground, alarming the other soldiers. Fortunately, no incident has happened. Sanborn tells James that they have to communicate for the mission, something which James does not care for. Sanborn is evidently unamused with James' nonchalant and reckless attitude. The next day, while playing a video game, Eldridge is approached by a soldier named Cambridge. Eldridge, who calls Cambridge a doctor, admits to Cambridge that he is thinking about death, especially Thompson's recent death. Meanwhile, while he is walking outside, James is approached by a young kid selling DVDs. He then buys from the kid. Later, while brushing their teeth, Sanborn tells James that he does not appreciate his recklessness yesterday. James tells him that he'll get used to it, an answer that Sanborn does not like. Once again, Bravo Company is sent on a mission. This time, they are requested at the UN building of the city. They then learn from a guard about the bomb's whereabouts. It is currently inside the trunk of an illegally parked car near the building. And so, Bravo Company heads there immediately. While James is walking towards the car, an insurgent from atop a building fires at the car, which causes an explosion. The soldiers immediately fire back at the enemy. With the car burning, Sanborn and Eldridge give the fire extinguisher to James. James then commands Sanborn to climb to the top of the building while Sanborn stays with James on the ground. After a while of prying the trunk of the car, James sees multiple explosives inside, prompting him to take off his protective gear. When Eldridge asks James as to why he's removing his suit, James tells him that if he's going to die, he wants to at least die comfortably. He then orders Eldridge to get his things. After receiving his kit, James returns to business. James searches for the wire to cut inside the car. Meanwhile, Sanborn and Eldridge are having their struggles dealing with suspicious civilians whose numbers are growing. In his frustration with listening to Sanborn's request to hurry up, James removes his headset so that he can focus on his task. Soon after, Sanborn notices that some of the civilians are communicating with each other from afar, prompting Sanborn to tell Eldridge to pull out James from the scene. But before he can do it, James successfully defuses the bomb. While James is smoking a cigarette, Sanborn punches him in the face, telling him not to turn off the radio again. A high-ranking officer approaches James and congratulates him for a job well done. He then asks James about the total amount of bombs that he defused, and James answers that it is 873, impressing the officer more. Afterward, while resting, James re-encounters the kid that sold him the DVD. He learns that the kid is named Beckham. Immediately, the two bonds over soccer. Meanwhile, Cambridge talks to Eldridge, who was fixing the brakes of the Humvee. Eldridge tells the doctor that James almost got him killed yesterday. He also lashes out that Cambridge does not understand how things are in the line of duty because he just sits behind his desk all day. With only 23 days left before Bravo Company's rotation, the trio is detonating bombs somewhere in the desert. After the first detonation, James stops them to say that he left his gloves inside the blast radius. While James is driving towards there, Sanborn holds the detonating button and contemplates whether he will press the button accidentally or not. In the end, Sanborn does not follow through. While the company is driving in the desert, they see 4 armed soldiers. The company cautiously approaches them. It turns out that they are allies that just got stuck in the desert. While changing tires, enemies suddenly attack the two groups, killing one of them. They then retreat back to hide behind a rock while some of them fire back at the enemies. However, the one firing the machine gun at the enemy is shot down. Later on, while fixing his aim, the group's sniper dies instantly when the enemy sniper manages to hit him. With 3 already killed, the soldiers ask for immediate reinforcement. Sanborn takes the rifle and tries to fire back at the enemy. However, the gun is out of ammo. Eldridge retrieves an ammo from the deceased, but the blood is jamming the bullet. And so, Eldridge attempts to clean it, but he can't because he's also slightly panicking. James has to leave his position to help his fellow soldier. Because of this, Eldridge manages to clean the ammo. With James dictating the range and direction, Sanborn hits all of the enemy targets one by one. Despite this, they still observe for other enemies. James asks Eldridge for juice. But upon receiving the juice, James lets Sanborn drink instead. After a while, James and Sanborn notice that it is too quiet. Eldridge, on the other hand, spots some cattle on the side of some train tracks by a bridge. It turns out that there is an enemy there. Fortunately, Eldridge never takes his eye off of that direction and, after informing James about the situation, manages to execute the enemy. Their struggles are finally over. Soon after, Bravo Company celebrates their survival by drinking at the camp. There, Sanborn and Eldridge learn that James has a family. They then discover a box of bomb parts underneath James' bed. James explains that he keeps things that almost killed him. The boys continue what they have started earlier, which is punching each other in the stomach. However, James gets a little bit rowdy, which Sanborn does not appreciate, prompting Sanborn to pull a knife out. Still, James laughs this off instead. Afterward, James carries Sanborn back to his room. At this point, there are only 16 days left on Bravo Company's rotation. Cambridge stops Bravo Company's Humvee to ask if he can come along because he's tired of sitting behind a desk. They then head to a warehouse of sorts, with Eldridge explaining to the doctor that they will just do a standard extraction mission. Inside the warehouse, the group discovers various explosive devices, as well as recently used cigarettes. James also sees a bloodied body lying on a table. James identifies the body as Beckham, the DVD-selling kid whom he had befriended, as well as identifying that the body will be used as a makeshift explosive device. After telling Sanborn and Eldridge to gather as many explosives as they can, James then tells them that they will blow the place up. James later cancels the order for detonation. He then extracts the bomb inside the bloodied body. After successfully doing so, James carries the body out of the building. While he is delivering the body to a vehicle, Sanborn and Eldridge talk about how weird James' behavior is. Meanwhile, Cambridge expels some folks from the area due to the danger of the mission. After doing so, an explosion occurs right beneath Cambridge, instantly killing him. Eldridge runs immediately to the scene to find the doctor, still not believing that Cambridge had no chance of surviving that. James comforts Eldridge, who is crying his heart out. Back to the camp, James calls his ex-wife via a cell phone. But instead of talking to her, James drops the call without saying a word. The following day, James approaches the DVD stall near the base. He asks the merchant where Beckham is, but the merchant does not speak English. Angered, James asks the nearby officer to remove the merchant because he might be giving information to the enemies, but the officer tells him he cannot do that. And so, at the end of that day, James secretly takes the merchant hostage when the merchant is about to go home. The merchant leads him to Beckham's supposed house. James trespasses the property while the merchant speeds off. James discreetly enters the house where he encounters a professor. James admits that he's just looking for people responsible for what happened to Beckham. However, a woman sees James who, instead of fearing for her life, bravely confronts the soldier. James flees from the scene in the dead of the night. James returns to the camp. Because he is in his casual attire, the guards check him roughly to see if he's an enemy. Newly arriving at his room, James is contacted by Sanborn for a mission. Upon arriving at the Humvee, Sanborn briefs James about the mission. He then asks James about the wound on his forehead, but James evades the question. Bravo Company moves out. That night, they arrive at a chaotic scene caused by a recent explosion, full of both dead and wounded innocent people. At the edge of the blast radius, James discusses that he thinks the bomber is still alive somewhere outside the blast radius. Despite Sanborn's protest, James orders them to stick with him to find the masterminds. They walk and walk until they reach a bunch of alleyways. James tells them to split up, much to Sanborn's frustration. After walking for a while, Sanborn and James hear some gunshots, prompting them to immediately go back. They discover that it is coming from Eldridge's alley. They first see a dead body, but it's not Eldridge. They return back to the starting place where James sees Eldridge getting dragged by two men. As such, they chase after them to rescue their fellow soldier. Finally, after a while of chasing, James sees Eldridge and the enemies. He immediately fires at them, taking them down instantly. However, Eldridge is shot as well due to James' shooting. As a result, Eldridge writhes in pain. Afterward, still in his full military attire, James takes a long cold bath. The following day, while walking towards the Humvee, James encounters Beckham. It turns out that Beckham is still alive and well, prompting James to ignore the kid. After that, Sanborn and James run after a departing helicopter with Eldridge inside. There, Eldridge angrily lashes out at James, blaming him for the injuries that he has sustained from the recent mission. 2 days before Bravo Company's rotation, James and Sanborn are sent to extract a bomb attached to a man. After learning the situation, James asks the man via a translator to open his shirt, revealing that there are indeed bombs strapped to him. The man begs at the soldiers to save him quickly. Before James can proceed with the extraction, Sanborn tells him that it is dangerous. James continues despite this advice. James approaches the man, who, at first, does not follow the command due to panic. When the man settled, James discovered that the bomb has a timer. He asks Sanborn to get him some bolt cutters immediately. However, despite having the bolt cutter, James cannot do it due to the many locks in the bomb, as well as the approaching time limit. James apologizes to the man before scurrying away, leaving the man to violently die in an explosion. In their drive back to the camp, the two soldiers are visibly shaken from what happened. Sanborn tearfully admits to James that he's not ready to die. He then tells James that he's done with the war. Later on, James returns to America. However, he finds out quickly that he's not interested in such a quiet life. He starts to monologue to his infant son about how the things one loves gets reduced as time goes by. He then admits to his son that he has only one thing that he loves. The movie ends with James returning back to service, happily wearing the protective suit again. Now part of the Delta Company, there are 365 days to burn before rotation.